All right, folks, welcome on into another edition of Buffalo Game Day Recap, breaking down the Bills' 20-12 victory over the Jets, their fourth in a row, their second straight divisional, and a big win for them, an important win for them, heading into their big matchup against the Dolphins on Saturday night. Thad Brown, sports director, joins me live from Highmark Stadium. Thad, we were just talking before we hit record here. Not a very fun game to be at, to watch, to experience in the elements, but what was your view of everything from the sidelines?
Yeah, the rain and the snow, and it was really both. It was not fun. I mean, I talked to a lot of fans before the game, and everyone who was here was, excited to be at a game, and me too, for the job I do. But we all kind of looked at each other like, yeah, this is not going to be a great day to be outside. And it wasn't, although it did get better as the game went on. The rain kind of turned to snow a little bit, more towards maybe early third quarter. And then it was bearable. I mean, it's still December in Buffalo, but it wasn't as bad. The first quarter was just atrocious. And you saw it on the field. I think part of what happened on the field was both teams knew what the weather was, had warmed up in how awful it was, and kind of said, let's just not throw interceptions and we'll punt and hopefully the other guy will fall over first. We'll just lean on them until they do. But I think that the story for the Bills, the thing that you take away from this that's positive, and with a win you'd think there would be positives, is certainly the D-line. No Von Miller, you think, well, how are the Bills going to generate a pass rush? They had no problem doing it against the Jets. And this Jets offensive line, 13th in the NFL in allowing sacks this year, 13th to the good side. So that's a pretty decent offensive line to have some success against. Greg Rousseau, he's been doing it all year. Now, look, I will say, and I've said this a couple times with Greg Rousseau, he finds his way to some of the weirdest, most fortunate sacks in the NFL. Some of that is stunts. It's a good job being able to, use a defensive tackle, clearing out offensive line for you and getting in there. But for the second time in the season at least, I think maybe the third time, Greg Rousseau got a sack because the other team's guard took out the tackle that was blocking him. So, look, there's some good fortune when it comes to what Rousseau is doing. But obviously at this point in the year, he's got enough sacks to where you can't just say, he continually gets lucky. He's doing the right things. He continually gets pressure. He was very good against the Patriots. I'll be very interested to watch the film from this game to see how much of this was Rousseau winning one-on-one battles and how much was just right place, right time. Either way, Rousseau had a couple sacks. AJ Epinesa, who I thought had a pretty good game against the Patriots, was involved again today. And if you can get those two guys, the two top picks defensively of the last two drafts, at least on the line of scrimmage, involved and productive, obviously that's what the Bills are hoping to get now that Von Miller is no longer an option. So that was a big deal. Look, Shaq Lawson, he had a sack. He's going to make his plays. He's going to be dependable. He's not going to really blow you away too often, but he's going to be able to be a guy that can be counted upon. And he said that this game against the Jets was personal. He played for the Jets last year. They cut him late. Clearly, it stuck in his craw. He talked about that after the game, that, this was a game that meant more to him for sure. And we'll get to more on that in a second. But with this defensive line, all the things they did in this game, it was 4 sacks, 2 pass breakups. They even sent quarterback Mike White from the Jets to the hospital. He got into an ambulance immediately after the game because of the number of times they got clean hits on him. All those things, no one in the locker room was surprised that these young guys had that type of production. In fact, everyone in the locker room said it's expected, and they have good reason to think so.
I be telling them boys, bro, they drafted y'all for a reason. Y'all got drafted first, second round for a reason. If you think about it, all our DNs either first or second round picks in the past. So, they drafted them, and they brought me back for a reason. So I feel like we could do it, and that's why I just tell them, boys, just have faith, continue to have faith.
There should be no reason of any doubt in our heads of ourselves, whether it's me, Boogie, Greg, or Current Shaq, we should just believe in ourselves, believe in each other, and we can do anything.
I got 3 other dogs out there with me rushing, so it's really, our mentality is kind of like 4 equals 1. I can win on one side, if somebody else can win, then if somebody else isn't doing their job, then the quarterback just gets flushed out and runs away. So it's 4 equals 1 every single play we make.
We've been losing superstars since the beginning of the season, so it's just a standard that we got throughout our program, and next man up mentality.
It goes across the board, man. The D-line did a good job of, stepping up, and that's what get this thing going for us, man, because the game is won up front, and those guys definitely stepped up and played big.
That's what they're supposed to do, Greg had a 2-piece, AJ, I think AJ had 1 in the TFL or something. That's what we're supposed to happen. That's what we're supposed to do. That's how we're supposed to dominate the game. That's how we're supposed to hit the quarterback, you know what I'm saying? That when you start hitting them, you don't stop. You just keep hitting them.
As I said, Shaq Lawson made this game personal. After his sack in the second half, he said he ran up and down the field about 80 yards celebrating because, quote, I wanted the Jets to hear me and to feel me. Shaq is always a guy that's full of emotion, and you know when he has reason to be motivated. He doesn't need it in general. He just walks in ready to go and to light up a room and to be the guy yelling and screaming on the sideline. When you give him motivation, it means a little more. AJ?
Yeah, and you touched on a little bit with that defensive line performance with the clean hits. They had 4 sacks. They got Mike White out of the game early. They got him out late. He went to the hospital, potentially rib injury, things like that. Joe Flacco, the sack fumble. Not a single defensive penalty, roughing the passer or anything like that. That is very impressive to be that dominant, that, impactful on the quarterback. If you guys can see this picture, if you're watching on RochesterFirst.com, just look at the face of Mike White. That's a rough face for a quarterback to have after a sack. So I thought that was impressive from the defensive line, not only just to get relentless pressure, but to not be flagged for it. As you mentioned, the weather obviously playing an impact on the offensive side of the ball. This one was not a hallmark game for the offense. And just one thing I want to point out is that it's kind of becoming a theme is that when the offense is bad, it gets really bad. They're having trouble with these layups, the short passing game. Obviously the departure of Cole Beasley has been talked about, just winning one-on-one matchups. Gabe Davis had a drop. Isaiah McKenzie had multiple drops. The screen game never is effective. They tried that out a little bit. It just wasn't good. So the Bills have to find a way to get their short passing game going, their running game going, where it's one thing to look bad in the first half. It's another thing to punt the ball 5 times and only get 1 drive. If you can turn that into, a field goal, a fluky touchdown and 3 punts, that's a big difference, especially, when your offense isn't going well. To go from a 0 to, a C-, that's going to be an important factor for them down the line when things aren't going well outside in this weather, because if the Bills hold their number 1 seed as they have right now, it's not going to be great conditions for them going forward in the playoffs.
No, and I think, AJ, the thing the Bills need to do down the stretch here is find something to count on. Defensively, you had Von Miller. You knew there'd be at least a pass rush from there. Now, maybe Greg Rousseau's that guy. Maybe it's Rousseau plus Oliver plus Epinesa. It's a group effort. Greg Rousseau talked later after the game about how he sees it as 4 that, turns into 1, basically 4 guys working for the same goal. So defensively, maybe it's a group effort there. Or maybe, Trey White gets back to his old form, and he and Jordan Poyer and DeMar Hamlin and whoever plays the other corner can develop into that cover group like the Bills had last year. Because last year defensively, they didn't have Von Miller, but they count on the back end. They knew that every time they went out into the field, didn't matter who they played, that secondary, those corners and safeties were going to just be so in sync and so talented, they were going to erase what a lot of teams wanted to do, throwing the ball down the field until they played the Chiefs. Offensively last year, you knew Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley were going to move the ball. You knew the Bills would be able to find big plays. You don't have that on offense right now. You can't even count on Devin Singletary to catch a bleeping swing pass right now. So the Bills have all these things they can do. And they have a quarterback that's all world and leaping again, and will find a way, will be a force of nature almost to make a play when it's needed. But you don't want to have to count on him to go airborne every game. 2 weeks in a row now, he's leapt for a first down in a spot where you're like, I don't know if you want to be doing that, Josh. They need to find something else to depend on, and it might take the rest of the season. It might take these last 4 games to do it. Good news is they're 10-3. They're going to make the playoffs. Probably going to win the division. Next week's game will be a big factor leading into that. But it's going to have to, something in these next 4 games, the Bills are going to have to go into the playoffs and say, we can do that. It doesn't matter who we play. Because today against the Jets, this defense, now look, the Jets defense is really, really good and really, really talented. The Bills were not going to out-talent this Jets defense. And the Bills offense is not used to that. The thing I liked a lot is that when they realized, or at least when they were failing trying to out-talent the Jets, they outsmarted them with the 4th and 1 play where Dawson Knox got under center, simulated a snap, drew C.J. Mosley offsides, and that kind of sparked the offense. Certainly, a big part of that end of first half touchdown drive, but the Bills offense scored on their next 4 drives. Huge play, a spark when they needed it. Mitch Morse and Knox talked about how that play came together after the game.
It's just a great scheme by Coach Dorsey, showing me going in motion and getting under the center real quick. The defense is thinking for sure, you know, QB sneak, tight end sneak, whatever you want to call it.
We were stalling out, just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, and this is a play we've been working on for a very long time. And Dawson's does such a good job of executing it, even in walkthrough, that he gets us to jump sometimes.
Get up under there, give him a second, give a loud cadence, and I got C.J. Mosley flying over like Troy Polamalu.
Kudos to him selling it, and everyone else. You know, it takes the whole crew to get the defense to feel like they really need to stop it. And you know, that momentum led to the first points on the board, and we needed those tremendously.
In my mind, I'm like, gotcha, but then I'm like, you know, got to take a hit. But it was fun getting the fans going like that.
Now, Knox scored at the end of that drive on a play that Josh Allen called a Superman dive, but Knox said that the 4th-and-1 trick play was his favorite play in the NFL ever, saying that when he got under center, kind of took him back to his high school days. Big play for the Bills, got him going, and credit to Ken Dorsey for having that in the bag and for, as Mitch Moore said, everybody executing it. It's not just Knox that makes that happen. It's the whole offense kind of putting it together. AJ?
Yeah, Knox was asked about that, or I think it was Josh Allen who was asked about that. You know, how many times do you guys actually practice that play? And he said that they practice it every single Saturday. So clearly this is something that they knew that they wanted in a big spot. You know, they had to bust it out late in a Week 14 game against the New York Jets, but certainly it paid off for a win, and these wins are important anytime you get them. I want to talk about real quick the 3rd-and-long defense that was really a problem for the Bills today. 5 separate times in this game, they gave up first downs on 3rd and long, 3rd and 8, 3 times on 3rd and 10, and once on 3rd and 12. Jordan Poyer asked about it after the game. He said it wasn't really a point of concern for them. It will be a point of emphasis going forward. So certainly they're aware of it. They're not freaking out too much about it. And a lot of the social media chatter on Twitter was all about Dane Jackson again. You know, he's starting to get the Levi Wallace treatment where if you're not Trey White, they're going to start throwing at the other guy, and he's going to get a lot of, you know, hubbub about it. But 2 of those third and long plays were against Trey White. 1 was against Taron Johnson. Granted, Dane Jackson also had a hold on that play where it would have been a first down anyway. And second, the other 2 were against Dane Jackson. So you've got 2 problems here. A, you know, the 3rd and long defense. The other thing is that the Bills still can't figure out who they want to play cornerback right now. Xavier Rhodes was inactive. He played last week. Kaiir Elam was active this week. He didn't play at all. They trotted out Dane Jackson and Trey White the entire time, and it was, you know, it came to questionable results. That I want to get your take on the 3rd and long, you know, the 3rd and long play, and then what do you think they're going to do with these cornerbacks, at least until Christian Benford comes back, because it seems like he might, you know, have a big say in that rotation if he comes back later in the season.
AJ, simply put, none of the corners are good right now. I mean, other than Trey White, and even Trey White hasn't been Trey White. I don't think we'll see all-pro Trey White this season. I think he'll get better as the year goes along, and I think the good news is by the time the Bills get to the playoffs, you know, you might get Trey White at 90, 95% of normal. But I don't know if you ever see him totally all-pro level play this year, and I think you're going to see some instances like you had in this game where he's going to get beat. It's going to happen. But I think more important, the Bills don't have Micah Hyde either. You know, and in this defense that's so zone-based, so communication-oriented, when you're not sure about that guy next to you, and it doesn't mean that the Bills don't trust DeMar Hamlin or whoever the corner is, but it means that when Micah Hyde was there and when it was Trey White and Jordan Poyer, those guys knew each other like the back of each other's hand. I mean, they probably could read each other's thoughts. You don't have that anymore. So it's going to make a difference. It doesn't make them bad, but it is going to make them kind of normal for the NFL. And this is a league, remember, where the receiver's supposed to win, where the offense is supposed to win. But separate of that, you know, the other guy in the corner, the second corner this year, no one has lived up and taken that job to where you want to trust that guy, even to feel like he's the best of the group. I mean, if you ask me right now which corner I think should be number 2, I don't know. They're all not good. Xavier Rhodes, Kaiir Elam, Dane Jackson, who I love, just, you know, has not lived up to, you know, what my expectations were this year. I'm sure his as well. Christian Benford's going to get a shot only because he hasn't been toasted in the last 4 weeks, unlike the rest of these guys. So maybe Benford's the answer. I don't think so. I think what the Bills do down the stretch here is use all of them and hope someone emerges as the best. I don't think you're going to find a good option, but at least if you can know, okay, that's the guy, and then you could put him on the field all the time and develop that communication and all those other things I talked about, that at least would be a benefit for the Bills defensively.
Yeah, because, you know, all throughout the season they've been doing that rotation. Today it was basically just Dane Jackson and it was Trey White. So they're trying. It ain't working right now, but they're trying their best to find 2 guys, and we'll see if they can find that going forward. But as we mentioned previously, a big game coming up on Saturday, right back at Highmark Stadium. The Dolphins come to Orchard Park. They're going to play the Chargers tonight. I'm looking over at our weather center right now. I'm seeing 34 and snow flurries, 30% chance. So hopefully it's a little bit better. Thad, your final thoughts before we head off and prepare for this Dolphins game.
You know, one thing that I thought about, you know, with the Bills here is that the plan going into the season was we've got this great offense, this elite offense that just can dominate people, and then when we're up 35-17, Von Miller's going to close the door. Well, both those things are kind of out the window right this second. The offense might be able to get back to some super level of eliteness. It's still really, really good, but it's not quite what it was last year. And obviously Von Miller's gone. The Bills are going to need a new plan. And I think the thing that you're encouraged from this game is you saw a couple of new things that worked big. Like I said in the first half, instead of trying to out-talent the Jets, the Bills outsmarted them. And that at least got the offense going. And then the new thing on defense was we don't need Von Miller. We've got all these other draft picks. As Shaq Lawson said, everybody on this defensive line is a first or second round pick. They should be good. You know, they should expect to be good. And they were good in this game. So maybe that can be the plan going forward. But either way, something new is going to have to be what the Bills rely on if they're going to be the Super Bowl favorite, the Super Bowl, on the Super Bowl road that we expected them to be. We saw a little bit in this game. I don't know how much of it is repeatable. We'll certainly find out on Saturday. But at least they got it done in this game. And, you know, the first step towards making the Super Bowl is winning the division. They had to win this Jets game. They're going to have to win on Saturday night against Miami. Part one of that mission is accomplished. We'll see how part two goes in 6 days.
Thank you very much, Thad. Well, that'll do it for us tonight on Buffalo Game Day Recap. It's going to be a really long time before we see you on Buffalo Game Day Recap because of this crazy schedule. To be honest, if it breaks out, we might never see you again on Buffalo Game Day Recap, but you can always find us on News 8 and RochesterFirst.com. For Thad Brown, I'm AJ Feldman. Thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your football weekend.